So I think working with our partners, including local authorities and charities,
So you've identified enough space for those 5,000, let's say, beds?
There will be, and it depends, because obviously it depends on where the rough sleepers are in the country, depends on what type of accommodation is available, but that we're really clear that people won't have to sleep on the streets this winter.
We can speak now to the Housing Secretary, Angela Rayner, who's in the North East this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Rosie, and it's raining.
Yeah, I know. Thank goodness it was raining when I got in the taxi this morning. We're going to talk about infrastructure a little bit later on the programme, including how we handle drought. But can we start with this target, this hugely ambitious target? How are you going to get thousands of people off the streets in the next 4 months? Where will they go?
Well, we've shown a tremendous ability to do this during the pandemic, and what we've said is we're investing £442 million additional money in the drive to get people off streets this winter. And I've seen models like this, like in Greater Manchester, that we want to roll out. That means that we don't have to see those scenes during the winter months of people having to rough sleep, that there will be options for them, working with partners like the councils and charities like Shelter and others.
I wonder what those options will be, because in the pandemic you had empty hotels to put people into and could do that very quickly. In Greater Manchester, you've mentioned that, Andy Burnham promised to eliminate rough sleeping in Greater Manchester within 3 years. Initially there was great success, but now we're back up to 3/4 of the levels of people rough sleeping as when that pledge was first announced. So where will those people go? You don't now have loads of empty hotels to put people into.
Well, there has been provision provided, like in Tameside, for example, in my borough in Greater Manchester, we have provision where people can go and get a bed for a night. Then we support over 2,000 people in Greater Manchester. But as you hinted at, we made great strides on it in Greater Manchester, but it wasn't a national programme. And we need to roll it out so everywhere has exactly the similar options that work for them in their local area. And we can work with partners to ensure that those options are available, whether that's hotel or other forms of shelter that people can use. But what we don't want to see is the scenes of people having to sleep rough in the winter and cold months. And then it's about the wraparound support that you offer people. So working with my colleagues in health and in the Home Office and across government to make sure that the support is there and that people are not rough sleeping when other options are available.
So have you identified, it could be in excess of 5,000 beds that will be needed? Theresa May's pledged to do this in the past. Boris Johnson has done. Andy Burnham promised, as we said, to eliminate rough sleeping in Greater Manchester and hasn't managed it. What is going to be different nationally this time?
Well, I think the level of investment which we've shown, which is the largest on record in total of £4 billion, and the £442 million additional money that we're putting in now, shows the level of ambition. And during the pandemic, we were able to make an incredible impact on that. And in the early 90s, I think there was a real focus. So I think working with our partners, including local authorities and charities.
So you've identified enough space for those 5,000, let's say, beds?
There will be, and it depends, because obviously it depends on where the rough sleepers are in the country, depends on what type of accommodation is available, but that we're really clear that people won't have to sleep on the streets this winter.
The wider context of this, of course, Angela Rayner, is the number of houses there are in the UK. You've previously described this ambition to build 1.5 million new homes by the end of this Parliament as a target that was like running a marathon in under 5 hours. So doable, but tough. Matthew Pennycook, your colleague, came on this programme on Monday and described that target as an incredibly stretching target. Could you sort of level with us? Because that so-called incredibly stretching target, you're going to miss it, aren't you?
Well, we've been really clear that it's an incredibly stretching target, but I'm not giving up on that target because I think it's really important to keep the emphasis on the amount of homes we need. You'll have heard only this week the national planning policy framework changes that we've made around brownfield and areas near railway stations so that we can speed up the planning process. We know we need these homes, and in relation to the announcement today, temporary accommodation and taking people off the streets this winter, short term is around these temporary provisions, but long term, we know the challenge we face is that we just don't have enough social homes in this country.
And
And that's
saying
why
you're
the
not
Prime
giving
Minister...
up on the target is not the same as acknowledging we're going to miss it. I mean, what is the likelihood, what's the likelihood you think you're actually going to hit that target?
I'm not prepared to, have failure on this. I'm not saying that we're going to miss the 1.5 million homes target. We've seen a 15% increase on home starts. Councils have built more houses in the last year than they have done since records began in the early 90s. So I'm not giving up on those targets. You're seeing now the measures that I took when we first came into government.
Are you confident you're going to make it? I guess that's the difference.
I know it's difficult, and I've levelled with the public that the target is a difficult target, but yes, I want to make that target, and everything we're doing now is about ensuring that we can do that, working with mayors, working with local authorities. We brought back mandatory local plans so that it's done in a planned and controlled way. We're building the infrastructure that the Tories failed to build. I mean, we've got drought situation, we've not built a reservoir for over 30 years. We're doing the hard yards now to ensure that we can ramp up the house building, and we've been really clear that we want to see planning in a controlled way, but we want to see that those homes start to be built.
Well, we're talking about how we're going to grow the economy on the programme today, and the Prime Minister has done an interview with our chief political correspondent, Patrick Maguire, who says there's going to be a big power shift to Number 10 North. Can you explain to us how could taking the responsibility to grow the economy away from the Treasury and instead give it to Number 10 North actually make the economy grow?
Well, it's about a focus of the whole government working together to ensure that with partners, with mayors, which the Prime Minister has been really clear about fiscal devolution, and you saw the Cabinet statement around how we're going to make sure that people work together to grow the economy. Now, centralising growth doesn't necessarily mean that all areas feel that growth, and you'll remember the Prime Minister says he wants to see growth in every postcode. So working with local partners who know their local economies, including business, including the local authorities and other stakeholders, they can really drive the investment, whether that's, I talk a lot about what happens in Tracy Brabin, the mayor, who wants to see a new tram that she thinks will drive investment within Leeds and within that corridor, and yet the frustration is that one area of government is looking at one bit and another area of government is focused on another bit. So driving that place-based approach to the investment in the economy, getting all parts of government working together with the local partners is how we see that growth. And Andy Burnham is the Mayor of Greater Manchester, who was one of the Pathfinder mayors who has had some powers, and you see that in London as well with the Mayor, where they're given the power and the convening elements of bringing all those different elements of government together, you can drive the growth and the investment in local areas and have a real focus on that. And I think that's a real step change.
But Andy Burnham's describing this as a huge transfer of power away from the Treasury to Number 10 North. And reading between the lines, isn't this actually about Andy Burnham taking power away from the Chancellor and putting it at his own feet for himself?
It's not at all, no. It's about the whole of government recognising that power that is centralised, which we're one of the most over-centralised economies, doesn't always give the best results for all areas. We've been keep trying to do that, and some people call it trickle-down economics, and you've seen areas which were deindustrialised over the last sort of 50 years that haven't seen that investment and that drive come forward. So we now have an industrial strategy, we have a government framework which is about putting power back in local people's hands, and then it's about delivery. So Number 10 North is a delivery mechanism for devolution, for the fiscal support, so that areas can start unleashing and unlocking their own potential.
But even if we look at housing decisions, we've heard a lot about devolution, and you set up this new planning framework on Monday. Ultimately, the buck stops with you centrally in Westminster rather than local authorities.
But look, local authorities are on the front line of seeing, the statistics.
But you can overrule their decisions, can't you?
No, there's let me put it into context. There's over 170,000 children in temporary accommodation. Local authorities, people come through their door every single day and they are desperate because they are on housing waiting lists and they are desperate. These are kids that have got no home. And if you haven't got a home, then your education suffers, your parents' employment suffers, everything is more difficult without that secure accommodation. So councils are desperate to do something on this issue. They want more control over that. They want more support. And I see my job as Secretary of State not dictating to councils, but supporting them, which is why we've made changes to the planning system so that councils can build the homes in the areas where people want them locally and critically with the infrastructure that those housing developments need.
Finally, Angela Rayner, we're speaking to you in the summer holidays. We've seen you on the DJ decks a few times, including actually alongside Andy Burnham, playing Set You Free when you were helping raise money for charities that support homelessness. Tell us, students will be partying this summer. Tell us what you think the anthem of the summer should be.
Oh, I mean, summertime. We've had, a couple of weeks of sun. I'm hoping for a bit of rain now. Not too much, but we need some rain for our gardens. But yeah, summertime. And just people to, especially the students, what I say to them is, look, you've worked hard all year. I've got a son who's just done his first year of A-levels and he did really, really well. And I just want to say to those young people, well done, but behave, don't party too hard and get back on it in September and do well for the next year.
Angela Rayner, thank you. The Housing Secretary, thank you for the time this morning.
Thank you.